In the past few months, I've seen a few videos on YouTube and a few posts on a few websites like Facebook, for example, in some LEGO train related Facebook groups saying, oh, wouldn't it be so amazing if LEGO revived or did a brand new dedicated trains theme? Yeah, it would be cool, but in all of the videos and the posts that I've seen, they're all excited and say, oh, they could do this, they can try this, and yeah, LEGO could do so many things to make it work, and there is definitely an audience for it. However, they're missing the key elements as to why it will never work. You saw it in the thumbnail, I think so, depending on how I want to tease this. And it's something that nobody's really looked at, and I'm actually kind of genuinely surprised about this. So the main objective of this video is to talk about what LEGO would need to do in order for a dedicated trains theme to work. And the sad truth is, it's never going to work. The reason is, the LEGO train mock scene is simply too advanced for LEGO to keep up with. So there are a lot of points I'm going to be making in this video, and there will be a few points where you might think it's a bit off topic, but I do promise you, as I go through this video and read these scripts that I've got with me, this is the biggest script for any video I've ever made. I don't normally do scripts either, but my goodness, there was a lot to write down. So again, there's a lot to make known in regards as to why this wouldn't work, things that LEGO themselves would have to do, what they have to do in comparison to what is already out there. And I'm going to start things off with track-related elements and track pieces. So simply put, LEGO just simply haven't made any advancements on track pieces. The normal curve pieces and the points are fine, but they're very sharp corners. If you compare them to what model trains has, for example, the most common gauge being 00 gauge, look at how wide of a curve that is. Now compare that to how sharp of a corner the standard R40s are, especially that LEGO is a much bigger scale. That's really difficult for some models, depending on how they're built, to get around. It really is a bit of a shame. So the flexible track pieces are also something that can be used, but it's not too common. You only ever use flexi tracks when you don't have anything left. I mean, I was definitely that person for a while, but I haven't used flexi tracks in years. I mean, if you know, you know. And this is the thing, I mean, with all of those track pieces that are there and are available made by LEGO, the flexi track pieces, you'd never use them. The curves on the corners, you're stuck using them because that's what LEGO sell. But even then, it's not enough. They're not really as useful as you want them to be. So that's what LEGO has in terms of LEGO track pieces for their trains. And it's something, but it's nowhere near enough. Not anymore. So if they were going to make their own dedicated trains theme, what would they have to do? Well, let's introduce them to Trixbricks. They are a company who make compatible track pieces, and they do basically everything you could ever want. In other gauges as well, they have narrow gauge track, wider radius curves. It's just incredible. I have recently bought wider radius curves, and it's only the 2 radius pieces wider than what LEGO themselves make. But even then, just going 1 radius wider, it's already so much smoother. And the coronation trains that I did for the big action video uses R56 curves. It's so much smoother instantly. It's just so much better. And naturally, the matching radius switch pieces would need to be made as well. So there is all of that to consider, but even then, it's not too much of a difficult challenge. LEGO could definitely learn from what Trixbricks are doing. Whilst they might not be able to get the patent, I don't know about the legal thing is with that. It's definitely a possibility, and for LEGO to mass produce their own wider radius curves, it would be welcomed with open arms, because LEGO can make so much more than what a third-party company like Trixbricks can produce on their own. So that's the track pieces out the way. Let's talk about one of the most important, if not the most important part of a train, the wheels. So LEGO do 3 wheel sizes. This is understandable, but when you think about what's out there, it's actually kind of embarrassing. So LEGO make what I call the tiny wheel. I think it's only called a small wheel, but I personally refer to it as the tiny wheel. The normal train wheel, which you can get, that has the Technic hole in the middle and ones that come with a solid wheel base piece, and the standard large drive wheel, both in a flange and blind design. And one thing that you may have also noticed with the main wheels, they only come in two colors. You have black and you have red. Black is the most dominant, with red wheels appearing in very few train models. The normal train wheels that use the Technic axle hole only comes in 5 sets, and I didn't realize it was only 5 sets. So yes, whilst it's an official LEGO wheel in red, you're honestly better off getting that size and design wheel from Big Ben Bricks in red, because getting them on Bricklink, for example, is so difficult. I never knew it was that hard. So if that's what LEGO has, already that's just a problem. Again, it's so little with what they have, and it will no longer suffice because, again, there are more options out there. So let's talk about what those other options are. As I just mentioned, Big Ben Bricks is arguably the biggest part of the LEGO train wheel scene, at least. And they have been around for, I don't know how long. Apparently they've been around for like a decade, maybe longer. When you look at their gallery and some of the older models they have, it's actually quite amazing to see the designs on the models because it's so of its time. And Big Ben Bricks is a company based in America, again, where they make compatible train wheels in larger and smaller sizes and in different colors. That's only one place. There are people out there who are 3D printing their own drive wheels. Most recent example is LNUR member Joe, who has launched Breckland Bricks. I have bought some wheels off of him, and they are, again, incredible quality, and he's already expanding with different wheel designs. That's something that Big Ben Bricks themselves don't do, but that's also something that LEGO don't do. Think about this for a second. If you wanted to make Thomas the Tank Engine, like I have, are you really going to use the standard black large train wheel? I mean, there are people out there who have, I mean, fair enough to them, but think about how massive that model is. Now think about how big my model is. It's not the biggest, obviously, but I'm trying to stick to a certain scale and standard. Even then, you want smaller wheels, and you want blue ones. LEGO's never going to make that. Not anytime soon, at least. Well, definitely not with the licensing for Thomas, because Mattel owns it at the time of making this video, and I don't think they're going to be playing nice with anyone. But that is besides the point. Whilst it's a very specific piece, it's also one of the most important. If LEGO was going to make a dedicated train theme, steam locomotives would have to be better in their variety. And the go-to thing that they would have to change is the size and maybe even the design of the train wheel. I'm not too fussed about the design personally. If it's still just a standard spoke design, that's fine. But the sizes and definitely the colors would have to change, because if you're going to make a locomotive from a certain area, most likely it's going to have a certain color. So that's something that must be taken in. As for the drive rods, that is actually unfair, because LEGO would probably only ever make one design drive rod and just use that for as many locomotive designs as possible. And the thing with that is, let's say this dedicated trains theme happens. They release a steam locomotive set, or maybe even redo the crocodile locomotive with proper drive rods. And let's say that's the only one they designed for a long time. A lot of people are going to look at that and go, where is the next rod where it's this size, this length, got this many holes to accommodate this many drive wheels? It's just unfair. You can get what you want specifically with people who 3D print their own ones, and honestly, that's perfectly fine. I mean, that's as far as it really should go, at least with drive rods. Up next, we're going to be talking about power systems. This is interesting for me because I'm someone who currently uses power functions, and I also power my rolling stock instead of my locomotives. So this is definitely going to be something to consider. And having said power functions, think about that for just a moment. It was a big old battery box, a big old motor, depending on what motor you're going to use. There is a dedicated train one, but even then you've got to figure out how you're going to wire those two together. And there was also an infrared receiver. So that's 3 big bulky pieces you had to squeeze into a model. And that's tricky. I mean, this is also why I don't power my locomotives, because trying to figure out a way of getting it all to work together in a way that it fits the design of the model, as well as not be exposed in any way, as well as not cramping any of the wires, it can be quite tricky. So I got it in the rolling stock. This was kind of condensed down with the new powered up system, where there is no more infrared receiver. But again, think about how much you have to kind of squeeze it all into a model. Now, again, to kind of cheat this a little bit, let's say you wanted to make a tank engine. Do you really think you can squeeze a big old battery box and a big old motor into a tank engine? However, that seems to be a bit of a good thing, because the bigger and bulkier systems mean that there is more power in the batteries. And this is pretty good because you obviously want your batteries to last for as long as possible. But even then, it's not always worth it. So, let me introduce you all to the Circuit Cube, a power system that is so compact and condensed in what it can do, and it's also Bluetooth operated, and it's so incredible with what can be achieved with this compared to what the standard LEGO power systems themselves can do. If you want to see the Circuit Cube at its absolute full potential, go and have a look at fellow LNUR member Trace over at Pierce Bricks. He makes a lot of tank engines and has even made some more tender engines now, and they all use Circuit Cubes. They can do more than just power your models. Apparently they now come with lights, which is something I only recently discovered. But because it's so condensed in what the system is overall, he's been able to keep all of the details and all of the structural power to the model all there. And it's just so bizarre because there's no bulkiness. It's all in one Circuit Cube, which is just incredible. If we were going to make powered tank engines, you will probably have to stick to the Circuit Cube. But one thing I can tell you for a fact, I don't think LEGO would make that. If they did, that's going to cost you an arm and a leg. So that's track pieces, wheels, and power systems covered. And it's basically the idea of LEGO has what they have, but in order to satisfy the modern LEGO Train mock community, a lot of new things would have to be introduced. And the way they go about it is going to be, well, in one word, difficult. I mean, how would you be able to continue to make trains the way they do? Now, we're going to be moving on to the topic of actual LEGO train sets. I am someone who doesn't really buy LEGO sets as a whole anymore. There are a few that stand out to me and I look at them and go, yeah, go on then, that looks a bit funky. It's cheap enough, sure, let's go for it. And when it comes to train sets, I'm someone who makes mocks so much more than I do anything with sets. So it has to be a proper good set for me to want to go for it. Or it has to be cheap enough. Sometimes a combination of both, but at the same time, looking at all the train sets that came out and kind of thinking back with a bit of hindsight, all of the modern train sets weren't really that exciting. And this is probably the most crucial part of the video because, of course, if you're going to make a dedicated trains theme, you have to make some sets. But how would you go about making those sets? It would have to be done in a very specific way because the world of railways and railroads is so unique when you compare it to anything else, especially in LEGO form. The 1990s LEGO system line of train sets look to be amazing. I only have the Metroliner and the yellow cargo, what's it called, like the Freight Runner, I think it's called. Those are the only two sets I have that were LEGO system trains back in the 9-volt era. I was born in 1998, so I can't exactly say those were the golden days of LEGO trains. But even then, having those sets and looking back to what was then compared to what we have now, it's quite interesting. I mean, just look at the box art alone. There's a completely different setup with all the parts that you can build with that set. Kind of like the Creator 3-in-1, but you saw the picture on the box and you thought, you can make that? That's a thing, you know. Of course you can, because you're being encouraged to play with your LEGO. The playability was in those sets. Things like the vibrance and, again, the playability is something that I would love to see return, and it's definitely one of the key selling features because model trains is the biggest hobby in the world. How would you see that in LEGO trains? Well, LEGO is a toy. You play with toys, so you've got to see that happen. And personally, the last train set that I can remember that had any kind of playability was 2009's Emerald Knight. I had countless amounts of hours of me just playing with that all day. Then I had to go to school, then I come home from school, and it's straight back to playing with my Emerald Knight because it was just such a fun set to play with. Something that I don't think has really been there since the LEGO system era. I can't really, again, say anything much else to that because I wasn't around for the 1990s LEGO system line of LEGO trains, but just by looking at it, it's something where you can look at it and just know. You can tell straight away. As many of you are very much aware, there was a time where eventually LEGO train sets were put into the City line, and we only get them once every 4 years. This is now a tradition, basically, that was introduced in 2006 with a separate cargo and passenger train set. The original ones had an RC system, but we don't exactly care about that. But one passenger and cargo train set appearing every 4 years going forward, that to say appeared in 2006, 10, 14 and 18, with the next ones coming out in 2022, is really sad because there's something I don't like about these sets. So with the release of the 2018 City train sets, it became very clear to me and many other people that these new train sets offered little to no difference. Think about it. The cargo sets would have a diesel. Now, a lot of people see diesels as boxes on wheels, but the shapes are very similar. The front ends and the back ends, sometimes they'd be, double cab ones. But really, is it that exciting to build something in that shape? Do you really enjoy watching that kind of diesel go round a corner? I can't say I do, and I bought a fair few of them. The passenger train sets in particular got relegated to using one single and massive nose piece. The 2010 train set was really cool because you had a brick-built front end. I loved that. I didn't think I would because obviously that single piece, it got an accurate shape. But brick building one was just so much better because, again, you're actually building the physical model, not having one or two massive pieces snap together and go, there we go, there's the front of the train. I remember when the 2014 ones came out and it just looked so bland. That passenger train set still doesn't really do well at all. I had a look on Bricklink and you can get one complete for about £70 and upwards, brand new, which is much less than how much it cost when it first came out. Even then, that's still not good. It would only cost about £110, £120 brand new when it came out anyways. But it barely sells. It just doesn't sell. That's a good segue to talk about prices, because the City train sets are understandably expensive because you get a good chunk of stuff in that set. However, the 2018 City cargo train set was originally sold for £180 on its release, which was way more than I thought it was going to be. I was thinking 130, 140, 50 maybe, but it was such a shock because no other train set in the past cost that much, and that was ridiculous. I remember going into the city centre one day, doing some shopping, doing my own thing. I went into this store and I saw it on shelf for £143. And I knew it was boring, repetitive. It had a new power-up system, sure, but I thought, you know what? What if this is the only good discount we get for a while? It's still a fairly new set, so sure, let's go for it. I bought it, I did my review video, which is up on my channel, and it was good for a while, but building it, I wasn't too impressed, especially looking back now. Again, the power system, sure, I still have that diesel built up, which is the only reason why I still have that diesel built up, because it has that new unique power system. At least it's unique to me because I don't personally own anything else that's powered up. I don't really care for it, but that's its own other arguments, which is completely irrelevant to this video. Then, I went on Bricklink, and this was... I shot myself in the foot because I thought, here we are in store, it's good discount, sure. I swear to God this is true, but I remember soon after this set came out, I went into the store to buy it, and then soon after buying that set, I went on Bricklink, and I saw that it was going for around £100, nearly half of the original price, still soon after the set itself originally got released. Now, if these big city train sets are going to get more expensive, then that's a sign that a dedicated trains theme will be... I'll put it to you this way. It's going to be a point-blank shotgun blast to your wallet. It's going to be very expensive if that's the way that these train sets are going to go in terms of prices. So with the LEGO City train rant out of the way, let's talk about train sets outside of the city line, because there are still a fair few out there, and some of them are good and some of them are a bit underwhelming, let's say. And this again does all line up because we need to mention all of these details about these train sets and how it's going to feed back into the dedicated trains theme. 2018 saw 2 new train sets in the city line. It also saw the new Harry Potter Hogwarts Express set, which is the best version of the Hogwarts Express set we've ever gotten. I mean, you can't debate it. Nice big station. The train actually has drive wheels, which was something they could have done for the 2010 set because the Emerald Knights came out a year prior. But hey, that's ancient history now. And at the time, they were charging £75. Lego, you cheeky buggers. Now, I am fully aware of the price to part ratio. That's a thing that hardcore Lego fans kind of look into. I'm aware that this had to go through numerous design stages. And again, there's the whole marketing and I suppose corporate side of things. But when you look at that, there's so much about this set that could have been better. The station is actually fine. I actually quite like that. As small as it is, and again, its own design thing, somebody comes from a muck side. Again, I actually really love that station. I would love to get a few more kind of, make it a little bit longer, a little bit wider. That would be quite nice. However, look at the train, look at the coach. Oh, dearie me. You're telling me that Lego designers designed this and gave it the green light. Okay. Again, I understand the marketing side of things, but my goodness, it's lacking. It really is lacking. And like I did earlier, there is more I can say in regards to this, but instead I'm going to refer you to British Bricks, a big name when it comes to the Lego train hobby, and he did a video comparing the 2018 Hogwarts Express set to his Hogwarts Express locomotive mock. It's a bit unfair to compare a mock to a train set, but there's so many good points made in that video. It's a bit of a repetitive waste of time for me to mention it here. Instead, go and watch that video. I will leave a link to that in the description. It's a very good watch. There were also a bunch of one-off train sets that appeared every few years between 2006 and 2020. Now, I mean there's only 8 sets that came out in this time. That these weren't parts of the City line or any other line. So if you look to the Constitution Train Chase or the Monster Fighters Ghost Train, for example, yes, they're train sets, but they were in an actual line, a dedicated theme. So I'm not going to be talking about those sets in this video. These 8 sets are a cut above the others. Now, I know about the Santa Fe Super Chief, the My Own Train stuff, that was all beautiful. But I'm talking about 2006 to 2020. That was a time where there wasn't, and technically still isn't, a dedicated trains theme. Santa Fe Super Chief was part of a trains theme. So these 8 standalone sets all have something major going for them, especially for Lego train sets, and how these can all be something that you can take elements from them and add them to a dedicated trains line down the future. They all have something going for them, even if it's the same points for a few of these sets. I wish future train sets could be handled like this, but I understand, again, the marketing side of things, again, the corporate side of things. Even if it's its own set once every year, that would be just beautiful, and I would love to see that happen. And for those of you wanting a little extra thoughts when it comes to Lego train sets, myself and a few other members of the Noir did a podcast episode a while back, where we talked about and explored some of our favourite train sets, why we have them and why we love them. That is another video I will have linked in the description. I'm on that podcast episode as well, so it's definitely worth a listen to. So I'm going to be covering these train sets one at a time, and I'm going to be covering them in the order of their release. Now, I did say that they weren't part of any dedicated line, but there is a bit of flexibility in this, but you should understand what I mean when I said that earlier. So we're going to be starting off with the 2006 Christmas train. This is a nice big train set that came with a tender engine and 4 wagons. No, it didn't come with any track or anything else, but the train set itself was all there, and that was the only focus. That's all you needed. It looked amazing for its time. Even now, the detail is captured really well, and that's something that is boasted in comparison to the modern city train sets. 1 year later, in 2007, we got the Hobby Factory 30-in-1 train set. Arguably the best train set ever, because there's the Creator 3-in-1 side of things, but that's been taken up to 30. And I have built all 30 models, and I didn't do anything else with my time during that 2 months? I think so. Yeah, it took 2 months. It was so strenuous, but that is the best example of replayability, because with all those parts, you can make 30 separate models. and on its own it's an excellent parts kit. Ah yes, 2009's Emerald Knight. This set the new standard for train sets going forward as a whole, especially with how steam locomotives should have been built. Now, most, if not all, LEGO train sets that had a steam locomotive in them had these new drive wheels that was introduced with the Emerald Knight. Again, having mentioned earlier with the excuse of the 2010 Harry Potter train set. But even then, this, like I said, set the standard. It set the bar going forwards. Not every train set is going to be this detailed, but it strapped a rocket to the LEGO train side of the hobby, and it's never really come down since. 2011 saw the Maersk train be released, and whilst this is a diesel with a reused design in other LEGO train sets, the real-world accuracy is what makes this so recognizable for a great many people, and the overall detail stands out and can be truly taken in. I said earlier that diesels can look like boxes on wheels, but this, at least for me, by far and away is the best looking diesel locomotive LEGO has ever designed and built. It is gorgeous. In 2013 we got the Horizon Express. I bought 3 of these during its release run, that's how good this set is. And this has an incredible amount of detail, with all of the details and shapes being brick built. This was also the first passenger train set to allow 2 of them to be put together without any kind of modification to the set, in the sense that if you look at some of these city sets, you would have to buy a second one, modify the nose pieces to look like coaches, and then you get a longer train set. Thankfully, this idea of having 2 of them that you could put together straight away was reintroduced with the 2018 city passenger train set. Hopefully, future ones like this design will continue to have that design element in them going forwards. I remember seeing the 2016 winter train set for the first time as well when that came out. It's a cute little train set with a good Christmas feeling. It's so true to Christmas as a train set. The year after that, we saw a matching station to go along with it, and that was really good in the sense that it captured the Christmas theme. That was its main focus. It was a bit of a gimmick, sure, because it's a Christmas train, but that's all that mattered. Train sets with the right themes and gimmicks can be done. Like this Christmas train, like the before mentioned Ghost Train for Monster Fighters. It can be done so long as it's done right. And this set did it very well. 2019's Disney train set was the first train set that LEGO released that was 8 studs wide. And that alone is something that needs to be embraced in the future. The Emerald Knight and the Crocodile Locomotive were built to 7 studs wide, but going 8 wide and maybe even wider at some points in the future, depending on the size and scale of the model, is something that should be embraced. There are American LEGO train builders, Tony Sava in particular, who builds his models 9, even 10 studs wide, and they look incredible. You don't have to go too wide and be too stupid with it, but that alone is what sells this model really well. LEGO is now embracing going wider, trying different proportion ideas, and it's absolutely going to be welcomed. And finally, we have the 2020 Crocodile Locomotive, one of the most attractive LEGO train sets ever made. Now, because it wasn't a steam locomotive, I originally wasn't too impressed and I didn't really care. But when I eventually caved in and bought one, I was so impressed. Again, there are some things that people didn't like the middle wheels not being connected, like the gaps between the 2 articulating end units, but even then, it's such a gorgeous thing to behold. And there's one thing you must remember with this set. This was officially the first set that LEGO made that introduced and started focusing on the adults series of LEGO sets. You know that box design where it's black and you got that sort of banner along the bottom of the box where it got these bricks in one color? That's all started with a train set. So what that basically translates to is LEGO can make a proper train set dedicated to the train fan market if they put the effort in. This could be a teaser to what could happen down the line. So with all of that having been said, there is definitely a lot to take in, but it is absolutely possible to make a dedicated trains theme when you look at some of the key elements these past 8 sets I've just talked about can introduce. A Crocodile Locomotive is probably going to be as close as we get, but it's, again, possible when you look at it from certain aspects. Even then, going forward, let's say that we get the news of a dedicated trains theme is going to happen. What would people want? Let's start off by talking about some themes. Now, there is no doubt that people would want a certain type of locomotive. Again, you got steam, diesel, and electric. You can make your different varieties of them however you like, but those are your three power systems, basically. And a line of steam locomotives, a line of diesels, you could probably even tap into going into narrow gauge. Why not experiment? If it's gonna happen, make something crazy out of it. Get the attention of the train crowd, because you can do something that is so bizarre and people are going to go, wait a minute, that's Lego? Oh yeah, let's give it a try. You can do it. You absolutely can. So that's a realistic theme. But what about something a bit more catered towards children? It's Lego after all, it is a toy, and they would give that a go. So what if Thomas the Tank Engine? Well, like I said earlier, Mattel owned the rights to the Thomas the Tank Engine, and there's no way in hell that LEGO would be able to strike a deal. Not because LEGO wouldn't want to, but because Mattel. You know, if you know, you know, but Mattel are a bit stupid right now, just to try and keep it a bit PG. I don't want to say something too rude, but you get the idea. There used to be an old Duplo line of Thomas sets, and I'm happy they exist. But that was only Duplo. I have made some Thomas models, and they honestly do require a lot of attention to detail. Getting the colours in the right areas, having to get trimline tape to get the sides of the running boards the correct colour. Faces as well is something that would need to be considered. So there's definitely all of that. But what if it wasn't Thomas? It doesn't have to be Thomas. Chuggington also exists, and whilst that's its own silly thing, the idea of having trains with faces isn't exactly unique, or any kind of vehicle with faces at all isn't unique for that matter. But LEGO could make up their own ideas, their own story. Here comes a new cheeky tank engine. Number 100, because he's 100 out of 100, 100%. Again, you can make your own silly ideas and gimmicks with it. It's definitely something that you could use, that could be aimed towards kids, as well as drawing in the adult Thomas market, and they can use those parts to make Thomas characters. It's definitely a possibility. Ultimately, if you want to see what people would want, go online and have a look at the many examples of what mocks are out there. Look at what I've made. Look at what people from LNUR have made. Go onto YouTube, just type in Lego Train Mock and explore the next 20 pages of YouTube looking at some of the amazing things that people have made. If LEGO were going to produce another Emerald Knight, for example, not re-releasing the set, but a steam locomotive of that caliber, they absolutely have what it takes to be able to make that, and make more trains like that going forwards. The train sets themselves don't have to be intensely detailed. They're not supposed to meet the standard of what people are making with their mocks, but the overall look and feel is what needs to be captured the most, and it needs to be recognized that they are putting more effort into how they are capturing those shapes. Again, it doesn't have to be overly complicated, but it needs to be taken care of. So what if people don't want a full set? Was that be a good idea to have in a dedicated theme for trains? Not everybody is going to want a set. What if people just want an individual locomotive or wagon? I am someone who would rather buy an individual locomotive and wagon, and the 2020 Crocodile locomotive is a prime example. It's just the locomotive. The Emerald Knights came with a locomotive and a coach. If you wanted more coaches, you're going to have to buy more sets. Then you've got more parts to make more locomotives, and you probably don't care about that. You probably got like 5 Emerald Knights worth just to get a full express rake. I think a better example of this is the My Own Train series. It was very unique, especially for its time, and the fact that it existed is probably an even better example that this can be done again. You can sell loads of different wagon types on their own, so you could buy a rake of tanker wagons, hopper wagons, whatever you wanted, for the kind of railway you want to build up. The locomotive in particular is so cool, because I actually bought the large variants in blue, built the tender engine variants. You had the parts to make a tender engine or a tank engine, but I bought the big blue tender engine variant, built it up, and I was so amazed with what I've built. I was much younger at the time, of course, but even then, knowing this was a thing, I thought, it's a train on its own. Oh my god, I might get another one. Again, I was only a kid, but I was excited enough to go back and get another one day. It was so cool. And this is, again, probably the best example that it is absolutely possible going forward. They've done it before, it's worked. You can debate about how well it works. You know, it was nearly 2 decades old now at this point. It's a thing that they've done before. So why not do it again? And why not use this as an opportunity to explore different railways around the world? So British Railways was kind of explored with the Emerald Knights, taking the shape and design of an LNER A3. Flying Scotsman, yeah, whatever, but you know, the shape is there. American railroads, you know, it's American, so railroads is technically correct, is mainly explored with some of the diesels. Again, think the Maersk train set, that diesel shape is something that you see a lot on American railroads. And European railways has a bit of a nice medium, and that's something we saw with the crocodile locomotive. So instead of making these locomotives with a bit of a simple shape, you can expand upon that and make it much more realistic. That is something that will definitely drive in a big crowd, because people will look at that train and go, I recognise that, that's a Lego set. Ooh, go on then, I can get that. So that's all nice and dandy when it comes to the trains and the rolling stock. What about the railway itself? You can't have a railway with just trains and coaches and wagons. You need stations, a freight depot, you need signals, crossings, so much more. There's just so much more to a railway than you might think. Now, again, LEGO used to sell dedicated train station sets, especially in the City line, and they were quite cool, and I would love to see them make a dedicated return. But what I'm going to do instead is point you over to Blue Bricks. This is a website with the company based in Germany. I bought their Eurostar set, and it is a very good quality set. And this kind of gives you an example of what they could make. And when I say they, by the way, I do mean LEGO. I'm just bad terminology. But even then, the possibility is there, the creativity is there, the realism is there. There's so much to take in when it comes to making a railway, but there is, again, it's absolutely possible. It's all there and it does exist. And the funny thing is, I'm going to be showing you pictures of Blue Bricks' train sets. Blue Bricks themselves have their own dedicated trains theme, which is where these images are kind of coming from. So one company can do it. Why not the biggest company? Come on, LEGO, you're being outdone here. So overall, there is a lot that shows that a dedicated LEGO trains theme is possible. But there's also a lot more that shows it's going to be difficult and maybe even impossible because of how much needs to go into it. They've done it with other themes, and it is possible, but why give this a go with all of the third-party companies and creators out there doing their work for them? The mock scene is more than just people making their own creations. It's people making the parts and trading these parts to make the railways, the trains, and the whole shebang related to it possible in the first place. Why would LEGO try to jump on this? That's the point. That's the point I'm trying to make with this whole video. Yes, it's possible, but LEGO hasn't done this for a reason. Other people are doing it. All these new train sets would be focused naturally towards train enthusiasts. Model trains is the biggest hobby in the world. LEGO is the biggest toy in the world. Obviously, the two have crossed over with the LEGO train sets, but you're going to be transferring model train fans and hardcore train enthusiasts into the LEGO market, which isn't easy, especially for people who don't really care for LEGO. I mean, for example, let's say you're someone who has £1,000 invested into model trains. You've got a few locomotives, you've got a few loops of track set up, and you're starting to actually get a few baseboards together to make a detailed model railway. Why would you drop that in order to go brick built instead? Sure, LEGO are making some good sets, but I've already invested a lot of money into my model trains, so I'm not going to start again now, am I? It's like stopping to play one video game just because another company has made a video game of their own, which is extremely similar. Why drop all the hours you've invested into one game just to start playing another one? It's stupid. It's not going to work. And the most frustrating thing is, most if not all of these new dedicated train sets would have to introduce something new. different build methods, different wheel colors and shapes, new track pieces. It's going to be too much. And even then, people are going to compare them to mocks. How did this person make their version of this train compared to what LEGO has officially released? Like British Bricks did with his Hogwarts Express, just to use an example. It's something that... it's difficult. Again, possible, but so difficult. Potentially even impossible, which is most likely the reason why there isn't a dedicated Trains theme out today. If LEGO were going to do something like this, it would most likely be like their extra line. You know, the little poly bags with all these specific pieces, so you can make a park bench and it has a few flowers, so you can put this in this small area of your LEGO city. That'd be pretty cool. But instead, it will be, here's a small pack of medium-sized drive wheels, just for you. Here, you know, little poly bag, go have fun. It's probably going to be like that, which is a bit of a shame, but even then, why would they care? Big Ben bricks exist. People are making their own wheels. They understand this through marketing. Why would people stop using these wheels from this person, which they know, they trust, they know that works, and then jump over to LEGO? Yes, you can argue that it's quality, but let's say you're waiting for LEGO to make this specific element. Years go by and they still haven't. You're still waiting to make that one model you wanted to make 5 years ago just because you're waiting for LEGO to make something for it? That's just stupid. Trains, as a theme, as a hobby, as a passion, is so unbelievably strong, and it only continues to grow day after day. So the next time you see somebody make their post online saying, "Oh, Trains is dead," just tell them, step into the hobby for a bit, you know, just play with the train, because it's very obvious that they haven't. But in all seriousness, with all the work that they would have to do, with all the potential that's there and all the difficulties that come with it, it's just so clear that LEGO could never, ever do a dedicated Trains theme because the mock scene is just too advanced. Thank you all ever so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any thoughts, queries, or comments in regards to this video, then let me know in the comments section below. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.